Hey everyone, it's Max and welcome back to our Python tutorial. So let's go ahead and open our idle environment like I've already done here. And to create a new file like I've done here, we're going to go into our idle environment and then we're going to go here and open a new file. So that's we're just going to click here, new file, and then we're going to see this file pop up. And then all we need to do is save it, and then you get what I've done here. So I've already saved it. I just called it untitled.py, but you can really call it whatever it is that you want. And then we're going to use that to write code in. Now it's very important that you have this .py extension here because that indicates that it's going to be a Python program. And so we want to make sure that we have this .py here. Otherwise it's just some kind of standard text file. And what's also nice about this py is what we'll see in a second too, is that it's going to start color coding, or our editor is actually going to start color coding some of our code because it recognizes some commands. And the reason that it does that is because it sees that it's the .py extension, so it's a Python program, and because it knows that it's a Python program, it knows that certain words or certain characters have certain meanings. So that's also why it's important to create this .py extension. Alright, the other reason that we want to create this new file is because it allows us to write bigger programs and it allows us to save them too. So we have this kind of similar thing to a command line here where we can actually put in values and do things line by line. But if we want to write new programs, we should always put them here in new files. And then we can also save our projects and we can also share everything. So yeah, it's important that we create this new file, and we're going to be doing all of our coding in this new file, and then we're going to go over and run it inside of our environment. Okay, great. So let's get started. The first thing that we're going to look at is how we can print or how we can print our code or a certain status to the screen so that our user can see things. So usually if you have a Python program, or if you have any type of program and you run it, you're only going to see when it starts and you'll see when it finishes, but you won't actually see what's going on inside until or unless you explicitly tell the program that you want to, give out this information, that you want to display it. And so that's what we're going to look at first, is how do we display this, because that's also going to allow us to see what we're doing. So if we display it to our output console here all the time, then we can actually kind of track our progress and we can also see what we're doing. Sorry. So let's go ahead and see how we can create this output. So what we're going to use is we're going to use something called this, or something like this print statement here. And we're just going to write print, and we see that our environment actually notices that it's a keyword and it color codes it. Alright, so what we're going to print is we're going to print a word. And the way that you create words in Python is through using quotation marks. Now, these can either be double or single, but we'll see more on that in a second. But you have quotation marks that start your word, and you also have quotation marks that end your word. And so everything that you put inside here, inside these quotation marks, is a word. So for example, I can put the word hello, like this. And so I've just created the word hello in here, and the computer is going to recognize this to be the word hello because it's inside quotation marks. If I put test behind here, we see that also by the color, the computer is not really going to recognize this, at least to be anything significant yet. So that's also important to note. So we see that if we want to output something, if we want to output a word, say we want to output hello, then we have to put this in quotation marks, and these can either be double or they can be single, but it's important that they start and end with the same thing, and we'll also see why in the next tutorial. But first, let's just see how we can create this output. Alright, so now that we have this print statement here and this word hello, we can go ahead and go and run our module. And now it's going to ask us to save it, so we can go ahead and save it. And then we see that we run our code and we see this output here that says hello. And so now we've just displayed our message here to the user. If we were to take these quotation marks away, like this, and if we were to run our module, then we would get an error because it doesn't know what hello means. So we'll also see how we can, define hello maybe in the next tutorial, but right now let's just look at printing out stuff. Alright, so we have to make sure that we put it in these quotation marks, or what we can do is we can also put in a number here. So Python also recognizes numbers, and you actually don't have to put in numbers in quotation marks as we see here, but we do have to put words that we want to put out in quotation marks. Now, is there any point to using this print statement besides tutorials? Yes, there is actually. Print statements are very important because if you're writing long code and your program crashes all of a sudden, because you can't see what's going on inside your program, you can only see when it starts and when it finishes. Usually, a way to identify what's going wrong is that you find the place close to where your program crashes, and then you print out certain values or you print out the current status, and then you try to see, what's going on, why is it crashing, what's going wrong, what am I doing wrong? Am I putting in some weird values or something like that? Is what I think I'm doing not actually what I'm doing? So printing is also used very often for debugging, to check your current status. You can also just, test with it if your program isn't finished and you just want to see how far you got and what it is that you're getting right now. But you can also use printing to make your programs interactive. So because you can display things to the user, you can also create interactive programs where the user maybe does some stuff, and then you also print out certain words to it, so you can make word games or all that kind of stuff too. So printing is really cool. It's not only used just for testing or tutorials, but it has a wide use, and you'll probably use a print statement in pretty much every program you write, even if the program may not finish with a print statement, but you'll probably use it here or there also just to check your status. So it's really nice for all of that, just also visualizing where we are and also allowing this user interactiveness.